Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very much belated SaligiaCast. It has been, if I'm not mistaken, 9 months plus, since the last one of these, and a great deal has happened during that time. First of all, for any of you that are following these, my apologies. Different things happened, and that's why everything was always pushed back. The the biggest event, I should say, that occurred in the last 9 months with the official cancellation by CCP of the World of Darkness MMO. And we both have a thing to say about that, but I'm going to let Virgil go ahead with his thoughts first.
Hey everyone, and yeah, thank you for introducing me. um, so I guess we'll go right into the discussion here. So yeah, WAD was. I know a lot of people know that WAD was canceled. The internet has gone crazy about it. I remember those first few days. I know a lot of people were just like, in their beds crying. But yeah, it was pretty upsetting to hear that this MMO, which was in what, like, oh, I can't remember, like 7 years progress. I can't remember exactly, and then it just shuts down completely, and it was horrible. What did you have to say about it?
Well, I think I was always the least enthusiastic about the whole thing because I was always looking at it rather from a financial and a technology perspective, where everything I would have to pay for the game, and so I was always the one that was, I guess, to be honest, partially wondering how I was going to do all this. So I think I took it, and by that I mean the cancellation, easier than most. But it was hard, and it was. I mean, for one, Saligia was entirely banking off of the game. I mean, to be honest, I thought it was going to end up being like SOTOR, where you had guilds leading up to it, and then the game comes out, and then you get X amount of success in that way. I was at least hoping to get there, and I think we were on track to do that. And then the ball drops, in lack of a better word. Really, it's unfortunate, and the fact that it doesn't seem like we're getting the property. I mean, we're gonna mention, we could probably mention this a bit later, but it doesn't seem like that property is going anywhere. That doesn't seem to be the franchise has an outlet anywhere other than these 20 anniversary books that are releasing in one form or another. But that's a whole other different discussion. But overall, I'm disappointed, but I think I cope with it better than most.
Well, I mean, we can't all be as poor as you.
Okay. It's the first podcast in 9 months. Let's get into it a little bit before we start derailing over insult.
Yeah. So what was the date? I'm trying to look it up. Hold on.
Always prepared as usual. Um, the date doesn't really matter because it's dead. It's dead regardless.
I think everybody should know. Give me a second. Okay,
I think they do know.
I posted on Saligia that it was canceled on the 14th of April 2014. So it was probably that day because I remember waking up early because, my sleeping patterns were so fucked up. And I believe it was like around 9 o'clock. Yeah, my sleeping pattern. Yeah, me waking up at 9 o'clock is my sleeping patterns fucked up, by the way. um, but yeah, so it was like 9 o'clock, and you know, I don't remember where I saw it, but I can't remember. I think it was on like the one of the fan Facebook pages, and I think I clicked it, and I just sat there reading. Uh, I think it was on the CCP site, like a press thing, and I remember reading it, and I was in disbelief for a while. Like I could not believe what I was witnessing, and I had started the guild or the community with you and she and who is the Late Nights with Libby Lilith character if you guys have watched her videos, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But she was also on the WAD News podcast for a while, or for a few episodes, I think. But regardless, we did all this stuff. We started this guild. We set up a lore. We weren't the three of us weren't particularly good with the systems of V20. I mean, yeah, we might have role played it for a while, but we weren't really that involved with it. I mean, we're fairly young, um, so we weren't that involved. And I did a lot of research. I read through like 3 or 4 core books just to get ready for this game, and I was so excited because I love World of Darkness. And I watched or I read this thing, and for a while I was in disbelief, and then it started to sink in, and then we got into vent, and then we were all upset. Oh man, it was just so bad.
I just it and that just shows you how long we've delayed these casts. Because I think the last podcast we did was March before this, and then this broke in April. So whoops. Um, yeah, but it was just. I mean, again, the only thing I can compare it to was before SOTOR, which was you had, because I remember leading up to this, there was this guild and that guild. There was a Russian branch. I remember that I think there was even an Italian one, and I'm sure there were a lot. I almost called them minor. I shouldn't do that. That's disrespectful. But there was a lot of different groups that were scattered around that we just didn't find on social networking. But it just seems like a miscalculation and it just, to be honest, it just showed that CCP cannot handle an existing product. In my opinion, it just seems like they don't know how to handle a franchise. That they're good at. I never played Eve, but I mean, from what Eve does for them, it seems like it's really good. They're good at world building. They're good at universe building. And if only they could have applied that to an existing universe. And I don't think they were capable of doing that, considering how
All they
easy.
care about is Eve. It's like what now they're making Valkyrie. What did they have before that? Dust something
Well,
something
didn't
whatever.
didn't dust crumble? That was a pun. Didn't dust die out like either shortly before or shortly after they canceled World of Darkness? Didn't they take the knife to that
Yeah.
too? But
Well, I
that's
don't
going.
know. I think it's still going, but yeah, it didn't do good. Um, but yeah, but I think what happened was that they were trying. They wanted to see how Dust did, and if it did well enough, they would kind of do more work on WAD, even though it's a stupid way to look at it.
Well, I mean, publishers do this all the time. They hold ideas hot, and I shouldn't say all of them, but I mean a lot of publishers do this nowadays in this sort of triple, well, fucking the triple A. I'm sorry, that flew out of my head. The triple A gaming industry, where they'll hold ideas hostage, where they'll go, if X makes enough money, Y, which is completely unrelated, may get the funding it needs. And that is just, if that's what killed World of Darkness, it is a sick way of playing this game. Because even though, and I'll give it's a niche market, I understand that, to make a franchise. I mean, that's why we saw what happened with SOTOR to a certain degree, although Star Wars is probably the widest market in terms of a franchise MMO you could launch. It happened with Elder Scrolls to a degree. Um, but when you're selling to a niche market, you got to understand the market. You can't just say, oh, if this makes money, then. Because not everyone who played Eve is going to go. We talked about this before. Not everyone who's played Eve is going to go over to World of Darkness. Not everyone who's going to buy into Dust or Project A, B, or C or whatever is going to go over to World of Darkness. So it's really a flawed concept unless you're just looking at numbers, which is obviously what they've been doing.
Yeah, but if it was a funding problem, I don't know why they couldn't just do crowdfunding. I mean, you look up on all of these social media and you see people you see people yelling at them saying just fucking crowdfund, we'll pay all this money for this game to get out. I mean, it's that important to some people, including me.
That's the weird thing. That's the weird thing because you could have done it because I don't know the intricacies of the property rights in terms of the books itself, but you're getting most recently, and this will be relevant later, Anarchs Unbound. A lot of these books that are being released, I think there's another 20th anniversary book on the horizon that might have been on Kickstarter recently. I think I think Werewolf 20th anniversary might have been kickstarted or crowdfunded in
Yeah,
some way.
it was.
Like there's at least some assets in White Wolf that's owned by CCP that are using this. I just don't understand. I mean, considering the absolute shit that ends up on some of these on Steam and these other platforms, I just don't understand why they can't. I mean, I should rephrase that. I do understand absolutely, but it just seems like a really pathetic decision. And but I guess I mean, there's looking at it certain ways. You can sort of smell blood in the water. I guess if you're making an MMO these days, where the old thing of everyone goes in the pit to get thrashed by World of Warcraft, but it's just to keep promising it and then to keep pushing it and then to say, nah, we're just going to cut it off. It just because as sort of paranoid as it seems, there's no way they couldn't tell that there was something forming around waiting for this. I think the footprint of the fan community that was sort of forming not apprehension, an excitement for this thing probably wasn't ignorable. You couldn't ignore it if it was in that many countries, if it was in that many languages.
Yeah, I completely agree.
We should
Like,
probably move on because we just keep going around the same circle of hatred that we were a couple of months ago.
I just wanted to point one thing out, which was, I heard from somewhere that it was a possible EA executive that came over to CCP who basically scrapped the whole idea, and that was the reason. That's what I heard. Don't know the truth. I don't know if there's any truth behind it. I don't have any proof, but you know, I've heard from people.
Okay. So everyone, just remember, add another notch to the belt for reason to hate EA or former EA. Okay? Just blame them for that too. Blame everybody. Hell, blame Ubisoft too if it helps you get over this. Just blame everyone just because you can.
I mean, if it was EA, it's understandable. But yeah, let's
Yeah,
move
they've
on.
never they've never crippled a franchise MMO before. They've never done anything like that. It would be a terrible marketing decision that I'm still bitter about.
But yeah, I'm just to end this little segment here. If you guys are interested in anything, to further your MMO World of Darkness vampire needs, you guys can look into Project Dogma. Basically, it's a Russian group who's trying not port over World of Darkness MMO, but kind of make their own World of Darkness kind of thing. I'll put a description down below if you guys want to read up on it. But you'll need a translator, so use Google Chrome or something like that. But yeah, basically they're just trying to make their own World of Darkness MMO, and it's looking pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. And then there was Project Valkyrie, which recently just got dumped on by CCP for copyright.
No,
Um,
because it's dead now. They cease and desist it, so we could talk about it without any actual side effects from CCP or backlash. That's a weird thing to do. For me, I mean, you own what you own and you want to protect what you own. That's copyright laws. That's international copyright law. But if they're putting an idea on the shelf and then shooting down possible rights violations, I don't know if that's just them protecting what they own or if they actually have a plan for this. So part of me doesn't like when I hear stuff like that because it's a corporation shitting on indie stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, are you guys actually gonna do this, or are you just? I don't know. I just I want to see this
well,
property
it's a mod.
exist.
It was supposed to be a mod for, you know, Vampire the
Bloodline.
Masquerade Bloodlines. Yeah. And I mean, for them to do that, well, I mean, I can understand that they don't want their game being ported onto a different engine because that's basically what they were doing. It was porting it onto a different engine so people can play multiplayer on it and sort of like an MMO feel within Santa Monica. And I don't know if that was the reason they could actually do this, but to, to dump on a mod is like going on Skyrim and making a mod and then the Skyrim guy is saying no, this you can't do this. Like it makes no sense.
See, that's the weird thing. If there's I'm gonna call it an EA influence because not that EA is part of it, but this is that EA person or former EA person rather was the reason World of Darkness got shut down. That's odd because there used to be a different view in the gaming industry. I remember back in the day. I'm pretty sure with EA. I'm sure if I'm wrong about this, somebody will correct me. Back in the day with EA, they would every couple of years or X amount of years down the line, they'd release the older Command and Conquer titles as freeware, as moddable freeware. They would never do that. No company in their right mind would do that anymore because it's the process of gaming, the process of making a product has now been separated off as just making money. I mean, everything is capitalism. Everything in the world is about making money, but it's just become so blatant. This disregard for the product, but that we should probably move on.
I'm happy we're playing an Anarch game.
Yeah, let's get to that. There's a big elephant in the room they have to talk about before that, though. All right, now that we finally addressed the cancellation of the World of Darkness MMO, it's time to talk about Saligia. And for a while after the cancellation, you started to see the other communities start to die off. And these are the communities that were really much like Saligia, built around heading into. I'm shaking. I don't know why I'm shaking, but I am. Heading into the game with a product. I know Legend Gaming had one of them. I think there was a lot of other independent guilds and communities that were focusing around it. And it seemed at months after cancellation started, after months, fuck, I'm messing the words now. Months after the cancellation, they were all dropping like flies, and it seemed like Saligia was the last one. And that should have been a sign that one community can't really stand on its own. And basically, the thing that I'm trying to say is Saligia died. And if you know anything about forums, or especially roleplay forums, dying is what it is. It's dying. The membership, for one reason or another, the majority of the membership becomes inactive, and most activity grinds to a halt, which ultimately means ongoing stories don't progress, which means people most likely lose motivation to continue, and it's dead. The reason we're saying this is I think we have to address it, and I think Virgil and I should have some sort of humility as the creators of Saligia to sort of give our take on this before moving forward. And there is a future. We assure you, don't stop watching this now because I said it died. There's more podcasts. But I'll just let Virgil address the death of his forum, his guild, and then I'll make my remarks. My further remarks, rather.
Yeah, so, I was sitting at home one day. I'm going to tell you the story as to what happened, and, why things died. And, I was sitting at home looking at my computer, looking at the website, seeing the last post was maybe a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks with nothing. And I was like, well, we have to do something. Saligia, it's not working anymore. The structure that we built for a game. It was a guild. Now what I like to consider ourselves is a community. And, it's not for a game. If the game does come back, which I don't think it will, and not for a long time at least, then we could think about, starting up a guild again. But now we're just a community. We're an RP community. As I said before, we play an Anarch game. We'll discuss that more later on. But yeah, it was sad to see. I heard you talking about the guilds that were disbanding and everything like that. And I remember on Twitter. I remember seeing on Twitter that the guild leader of Acheron, the first day that happened, he was like, "Boom, the guild's done." Like the first day, I'm pretty sure it was the first day. Don't quote me on that one. I'll have to find it. I think I saved it. But the first day, he was like, he deleted everything. He changed his Twitter account, and I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. I love everybody that in our community, and we're in vent like almost 24/7. When we're not at school or work or whatever." And we talk, and it's like a family here now. And I couldn't just say fuck Saligia, fuck everything, and throw everything away. I will admit that when everything started to slow down and I didn't see people posting, um, I was kind of like, maybe Saligia has to end. Maybe we have to get rid of Saligia altogether. And then I was thinking, no, I don't want to do that. You know, people kind of still are on Vent, but Vent was still, or Ventrilo was, or our chatting client was, nobody was going in there either. Everything was just slowing down. Everything was bad. So then I came up with this idea. I wasn't sure if people were going to like it. I started getting on Vent more, started to talk to people, and I was like, what would you guys think of reformatting Saligia into basically a traditional Vampire the Masquerade game? And surprisingly, I got a lot of people who were like, "Yeah, let's fucking do this shit." And it felt good to hear that. And so I started writing some stuff down, started thinking of what to do. We started putting polls up. I asked people what did they want to do. Camarilla, Sabat, Anarch game. I was surprised that Anarch won. Um, Anarch are my favorite, but I was very surprised it won. I don't know many people that like Anarch, mostly Sabat. But yeah, anyway, it won. And then I put up another poll asking people where they wanted the game to take place. And as everybody knows, most Chronicle games happen in one city. In Saligia, we had it. Saligia was a international crime family, so we had in the lore we had bases and communities across the world. Now we're just doing a regular New York by Night Anarch Chronicle, using the new Anarch Unbound lore and all that jazz. And yeah, I mean, everybody's into it. Everybody's liking it. Everything started coming back. Everybody started coming back. People haven't seen in like 3 months came back. I got emails from people. I got messages from people saying, yeah, that everybody likes this idea, and it felt really good to hear that. And now Saligia is back in action, which I was really happy to hear. Do you have anything to say, Guy?
Yeah, you veered off right into that. I wasn't prepared for you to go right into starting bringing up the relaunch. But to go back and ruin everybody's fun, I am curious about this because I guess the running joke between you and me is you don't trust any of my RP ventures anymore because I would start one and then shit would happen and then I would sort of be unable to continue it for one reason or another. So I am very familiar with the concept of something dying. Probably more than I should be, but I am. I'm actually more curious about what at what moment did you? Because you said you thought about maybe it had to. I what was the thing? Oh yeah, sorry. Just in case the edit doesn't mess up, there was a small edit. But what I was saying was that I'm actually curious at what moment, because you had to have a moment you thought about killing this entirely. I think you alluded to that. What was it like actually saying, the thing you put time and money and effort into might have to cease to exist?
I wouldn't call it depression. I wasn't very depressed. I don't really know. I don't normally get depressed. Not a, I never really get depressed. I did have like I can't really explain it. It was like a deep feeling inside me, and no homo. And I don't know. It was just weird. It was like, all this stuff. I'm putting money into it and putting. I learned a lot of vampire stuff in about a year. I mean, I had played like 3 years beforehand, but I never story told. I never really started a community before. I've been in communities and all that. But I mean, I'm going back here in my history, but the reason I started a community is because somebody told me at one point that I would make a really good guild leader, and I didn't really believe them at first. But then after our Sortor guild disbanded, I really, due to drama and all that, because that's normally what happens. It's the leaders that have this type of drama, and then shit unfolds. I wanted somebody that would, be good for a community. So I knew Gaius was really good at starting communities, so I asked him. We kind of, started things, and that was kind of the whole inspiration for starting the community. Was basically because I didn't want some fucking asshole making community and then just dropping it right off the bat due to some out of character drama. I was thinking on that, and again, it wasn't depressed. I wasn't depressed, but I felt sad in a way to even think about stopping Saligia. And then I thought about I thought about that history, and I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to try as hard as I can in order to keep this community going. And I'm really happy that the community is better than ever now.
Yes, you don't want an asshole. You say I'm good at starting communities. That's not what we say when we're not being recorded. But yeah, you tend to be meaner. True, but yeah, and to be honest, I was very apprehensive because I remember I think it was a New York by Night forum that you started probably maybe 3 years, 2 years before Saligia, and you're like, yeah, join this, and it's a sheet, and I'm like, nah, I don't do sheets. Um, I still don't do sheets. That's why I have not learned like Savage World or Unit System because I very few sheets I'm good at, especially if there's a lot of numbers. I like dots. Dots I can do, but I was apprehensive. One because I mean, I think I might have mentioned this before. I definitely mentioned it on Guys Go More. I've learned entire franchises to RP them. Um, Watch the videos. I've learned entire franchises to RP them, and this I assumed would be no exception, but I didn't realize the depth of the universe. I never realized because when I was here around for the Masquerade, I was thinking, okay, at that time I didn't know about Hunter, I didn't know about mages. I still don't know about mages. I didn't know about changelings. Still don't know about changelings. Um, so it's been incredibly interesting, and I got to do some really interesting stuff here. I remember very early when I got dragged into the guild, and I say dragged quite literally. Um, I was flipping through. Actually, let's be fair. The first thing I did is I watched a lot of Game Geeks on YouTube, and I kept rewatching his World of Darkness, New World of Darkness videos, even though I was doing Old World of Darkness. And I fell in love with a lot of the lore. Hell, what's the word? I retrofitted a story about the fucking Jersey Devil from the New World of Darkness Urban Legends book as a Halloween event. I really enjoy this universe, and way more than I thought I would, to be completely honest with you. And I'm now I'm just rambling, and I forgot where I was going with this. But it was certainly different than most things I was used to. I still there's a part of me that still prefers freeform in certain ways, but even now when I consider freeform, I want there to be oversight, and that oversight is very similar to the oversight that we've sort of created here. So this community and this guild and the system at large has definitely influenced my view of this hobby in a positive manner, to say the least.
Well, the thing I love, you're talking about, sheets and roles and all that. The thing I love about Vampire the Masquerade World of Darkness in general is that, like, one of the first passages in the book, it basically says, do not let the system overrule the story. So basically, it's saying, freeform as much as you want, and only use roles where it's completely necessary. So, and I really like how that works.
Yeah, I mean, you can get away with that, I think, in the storyteller system much more than you can, I think, from my experience in Unit System, my experience with D20. You could sort of say, sure, you can do this if it's within the realm of possibility. Although we never did it on Saligia, and we still don't do it. and something we'll talk about in a few minutes, there is the option of creating your own discipline. Arguably, there is the option of creating your own clan. There is the option of doing whatever the hell you want. Um, so it's definite. We're gonna keep going in circles, but it's this place was worth the time I put into it. It was worth watching it grow. It was worth, to be honest, it was worth watching it die in a lot of ways, because then when you take the second shot at it, when you take the second chance and you reform it, you now know you have this much experience doing this. This, and this didn't work. And now you can approach the second project or the new project with more insight. And in some cases, a heavier hand in dealing with certain situations, sometimes maybe a lighter, less strict way of dealing with things. So it's all about refinement. I think no one, and I have improved this myself, but I think you never get something right the first try. You always you gotta learn and you gotta try again. I mean, before we move on, again, at the risk of rambling, I have a feeling there's going to be certain members that have been named on the podcast or that were never named on the podcast, um, who have been influential in one way or another and may not come back, either through loss of contact or this reason or that reason. But I am grateful for all of them being here, because, and I've talked to members about this. I'm sorry if you hear a pen clicking, I'm instinctively doing it, and I've stopped now. But I've talked to a lot of members in Vent, and I always say I don't like joining someone else's game. I don't like joining someone else's forum. I like being in charge, because I'm a narcissist. Um, and in context, it's kind of really hard to listen to a podcast and go, no, what, I want to go with those guys, without any real idea. Because to be honest, we never made a podcast about Saligia. We sort of said who we were and generally what we did, but we never really listed our rules or what we were looking for on a radio, on not a radio, on a podcast. So a lot of these guys are making leaps of faith, and a lot of those members are now in either guild positions, or they are just key aspects of our community, even if they don't have power. And I'm very grateful for all of them. I'm grateful for the people that stayed. I'm grateful for the people that have come back. I would be grateful for new members, old members. I'm interested in seeing where this goes, because even though Saligia died, we proved that we don't necessarily need Saligia anymore. That we built something that can live on past it. Okay, we talked about the sad things. We talked about the cancellation of Will of the Darkness, and we talked about the death of Saligia. Now, as I said, there is a future, and Virgil went into that talking about the new Anarch game, and that's just what it is. We are now calling this the Saligia New York by Night Chronicle, and it's just that. It's a Will of the Darkness Chronicle set in Vampire the Masquerade in New York. The primary books being used for this are the V20 core rulebook, the newer Anarchs Unbound for V20, and the older New York by Night book, obviously. And we made a lot of decisions when rebooting this, and a lot of it was also left to the fans and I shouldn't say fans, I say members, I don't know why I said fans. Virgil talks about two polls. There was a poll, whether it be Camarilla, Sabat, or Anarch. I voted Anarch. I think, Virgil, you voted Sabat, right?
No, I voted Anarch in the beginning, and then for the second poll, I forgot who said, but basically she was, I think it was Ilya, who was like, oh god, I can't remember, but basically they said you shouldn't post for the second one because you can be the tiebreaker if anything happens. But yeah, the first one I believe I chose Anarch.
Alright, I'm sorry. I'm confusing that with the other Sabat game. But we both, there you go, mumble the words, there you go. We both ended up voting for Anarch, and Anarch won. And it wasn't a win by 2 points, to put it that way. It was I shouldn't call it a substantial, because not a lot of people voted, but it was clear who won. And again, that was surprising, because as much as Camarilla I mean, if you want to go for the old RP view of things, you always play as good guys. Um, so it wasn't a Camarilla game and it wasn't a Sabat game, but it was the fact that I shouldn't say somewhere in the middle, but you're Camarilla in everything but name, but also you can get away with a lot more. But there's certain restrictions, and those are in Anarchs Unbound. There are restrictions. There's certain things that you can't do. We can talk about that a bit later, but a major one is certain independent clans don't show up as much. Certain Sabat clans don't show up as much. But of course, if you can pitch the right story, if everything makes sense, anything's possible. Much in the same way that no race is evil, or no whole species is entirely evil. But I guess the major decisions, and we could both talk about how we came to this, is we sort of ripped out the heart of Saligia. We took out what made Saligia, the whole meta plot of Saligia, which was that there was this kindred criminal organization that was divided up into seven, basically tiers. There were seven different pillars of power, the sort of dark council, if I may steal that phrase, each of which had their own power base and within their own, influence of what they were doing. And that these seven people were generally only, they were the only ones that were higher than 10th generation, and there were some elders, some not. I stupidly did not play an elder. And they were the driving force. They were what a member of ours, a prominent staff member of ours back on Saligia, I think he used the word anchor. I think that was the phrase that was thrown around. That has changed. We've ripped out the sect of sin. There are no more parents. And that's, I think, you and I can sort of discuss the choice of removing them.
Yeah, I mean, well, Saligia lore, organization, family is completely gone. I mean, we did kind of just throw it out the window, but I mean, we had to because Saligia or Saligia, however you want to say it, was for an MMO. It was most definitely for an MMO for a large group of people. And the reason why we first did it this way, where we had, a sect of sin, and each one had a leader, and then a cast, and then a hierarchy within each sin. The reason we did that was because we didn't know what the World of Darkness MMO was going to give us. We didn't know if it was going to be Camarilla, Sabat, Anarch. It could have been all three. We have absolutely they never told us. And we wanted a community, so we had to come up with something unique and interesting. And this is what came out of it, and it was really good. It was really really fun. But now that the game is not coming out, we are just going with a traditional game. We're just going with a traditional game using the storyteller system, um, with some side things where we added something called chronicle threads, which basically is everything that you consider a storyteller system, where a storyteller tells people what's going on, players react to that type of thing. And then we have something called the downtime threads. And a lot of storytellers will know that downtime basically means what's happening, that the things that are happening that aren't in these big scale events, like maybe you talk to a prince or you talk to a baron or something like that. Like that's a big event. But these downtime threads are kind of like what's going on in the downtime. Maybe you're feeding, or you just want like a feeding type of thread where you're just going around, feeding on someone, and you just want like that type of experience. Then you could just do that on your own. You don't need a storyteller to be there to do that. That's kind of how we're doing it now. And I'm actually really liking the way we set it up. And it's been, I mean, I haven't really seen anybody do downtimes yet because we're so inspired. All the storytellers are so inspired right now to get these awesome stories out the bat. I mean, we have one, well, the hardcore New York by Nighters will know that the Zimitzi, um, the Zimitzi
Um, um,
antediluvian. What?
I didn't want you to mention that at all because it's an ongoing thread. It's an ongoing story.
Okay, I won't say anything.
Well, now you have to edit. Now you got to edit out that you're saying that one
No, I
thing.
don't. I can leave that in. All right. Well, all right. Basically, we have people who are wanting to, do things. We have people inspired to make stories, and it's good. What else what else did I want to say? Oh, Sector Sin, yeah, they're gone. Basically, everything that Saligia was is gone. So, all those hard critics out there who, didn't like Saligia because it, had to do with the seven deadly sins, which, a lot of people thought was a cliche, but I didn't. I thought it was, a very unique idea. It worked. It worked in the world of darkness as a crime family, and it worked really well. But if you didn't like that, now's your chance to come back because that's gone. We're doing a traditional game. So if you wanted a traditional experience of VTM, come join us.
I think it's, and this is never revealed to the bulk of the membership. I don't even think some of our storytellers even realize this. But one of the main reasons that Saligia's name was the way it was, even for the organization in game, was Virgil was an infernalist. um, for and as for, I sort of figured, although it was never really stated, because one of our earliest threads had to do with picking a side with the camera on the lot. I always pictured we were this sort of much smaller, like an independent. We were somewhere between what you would consider an anarch faction and an independent faction. We were somewhere an amalgamation of the two, and our decision in that regard would have been considered important. Um, and it's really funny that no one picked up on, because it's never really brought up among characters. But out of the seven leaders, there was an infernalist. Although they would switch for the same role, there was at least two additional Sabbat members on there. There was an independent that wanted world domination. Like for 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 a group where most of its members underneath it were practicing humanity, everyone, a lot of the people above them were these sort of horrible, horrible fucking people. Um, but it was that's the weird, like, the one thing, it's the internet. I mean, there are going to be people that are going to say horrible. Out of the 10 comments that this thing might get, there's going to be some of them which is going to be like, oh, your voice sounds like this. This is a dumb idea. Blah blah blah. But you know what? It's Saligia had its faults. Were there things that were cliche about it? Sure, but I'd argue that nobody plays. Let me rephrase that. Everyone who thinks they are doing something unique, I hate to say it, but everything's really been done before. I think role playing in itself is really trudging, running over the same sort of story in a slightly different way. I mean, there's only so many different ways a conversation with a prince is going to be carried out. Because if you look at the way the Camarilla runs things, only certain types of people end up becoming princes. So, but I do think, all in all, the what we have set up here, an Anarch game, works basically for our benefit. Because the players are on, I don't think you mentioned this, but our players are now all on an even playing field. When we say that we ripped out the parents, we ripped them out. They're not in here anymore. All the players that were parents, I think out of the parents we had four. I think four of our current members, including you and I, were parents. They're all now even now. They are now all 10th generation or lower. So really, we're all at risk now. I mean, not everyone saw Virgil's sheet, but Virgil could probably kill most people. And by I mean people, I mean elders. Um, back with the way you had it, and if somebody was just seeing it right with you, maybe you'd get a little infernalist powers, which made things a little bit more interesting. Now you are a completely different character who has far more weaknesses than your former Bruja counterpart, while I, being the elitist that I am, simply made a new version of Gaius. Because if I changed him, I couldn't have an ongoing podcast now, could I?
This is true.
Oh yeah, I just want to add one thing. Like a lot of people are changing their characters. I want to know what your thoughts on it, out of losing some of the characters we had, or if you think we're gaining better characters generally.
Yeah, that was one thing I had a hard time with when when talking to people about reformatting everything. Getting rid of Saligia was that Saligia needed to end. That means a lot of characters needed to go away, or somehow they needed to be ported over to the new system. That was tough for me to even think about that. Having people redo their characters, but then I spoke to people about it. Everybody liked the idea. Now I think it was for the benefit, and I think a lot of people are having fun making new characters, and I'm really happy seeing that. Especially me, I had an amazing time. I had two characters or two concepts, a bit of history for each, and I brought the characters to guys and and basically they were like, okay, this one character is really cool, you got to play him. So that's what I went with.
Yeah, I mean, just speaking from now I kept Gaius. I mean, I kept Gaius, but there were things I wanted to do with Gaius back on the old site. That I mean, talking to the other STs, we definitely like, oh, this is going to be this long of a process, and you have to Diabolize this type of vampire, and you got to do this, and you got to do that in order to do what I want to do. And it was really a high risk ball game. Now that things rebooted, I could give Gaius what I wanted to give him from the get go. Um, Mind you, it would be expensive, but I think I made a much better rounded character. I mean, despite having less points this time around to spend, I made a more rounded character. I prefer this Gaius to the old Gaius. I think I exploited too much of what a parent was. In some cases, in a game breaking way. Looking back, but I think that people that want to keep their old characters will adapt their old characters, like I did. The people that are willing to make the transition and come up and use this as an opportunity to create something else will do so. Um, I also think it's a great way for us to sort of clean house because due to inexperience and due to a lot of house ruling, there were people that whose sheets weren't up to the V20 standard that we let slide. There were certain people that had LARP rules and things that weren't sourced. Now we're trying to be strict and not in the totalitarian sense, but the fact that we just want to make sure there is the same standard. That one person isn't using a LARP rule for something and somebody else is using something else and they're paying different point values or different experience values for the same effect. So I think by putting everyone on the same playing field, on the same level, and judging everybody with the same standard, parent, non-parent, staff, non-staff, etc., we made a better game. We made a better game. We made a fairer game. And there's no more kowtowing. Like one character doesn't necessarily have to bow to another. And I think that's good. I think that's one of the benefits of the Anarch game. I'm seeing something with you, and your character has done absolutely nothing to cooperate with what I want him to do.
He's a true anarch, and he's a Nosferatu, believe it or not.
Yes, he's a very interesting Nosferatu. But I mean, I guess if there is, I mean, we're just sort of jerking off our own ideas at this point. But it is very, I shouldn't say it's very strict. I don't want to use that because that tends to scare people away. But there is differences in how we do things now. Minor differences overall, I would say. Um, and there is a tougher standard. I think we've used the term limited.
Basically, let me just jump in there real quick. Basically, we don't want people coming in and giving us sheets that are, going to be overpowered and don't make sense with or the sheet, and I think a lot of people can appreciate that. That we are taking every effort to make sure that the backstory fits the character. If your character has gone to school and has no academics, we make sure that either they change their history, or that they add a few dots into academics. Like that. That's an example of what we're trying to do. We're trying to not balance, but keep things the way they're supposed to be. If you're a new age vampire, maybe 50 years old, you should have at least 1 point in computers to use a cell phone. You should have 1 point in academics. You should have 1 point in drive. I mean, New York, you don't need to drive, but um, if it was anywhere else, yeah, you probably wouldn't want them to drive. But for the older vampires, those things aren't needed. And since a lot of us are new age vampires, we're making sure that things are the way they should be. Sheets, that is.
Yeah, yeah. So, and I don't, and I would say, you could disagree with me if you want, but we are generally, um, fuck, we are generally fair. No, that's the wrong way to say it. We are, we're always fair, but we are generally easy to work with. Um, I think we are willing to deal with most character ideas. I mean, your character, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything of what he has, but he has some off the wall qualities to him, as did mine. We've had very unique characters come through the door already. And if we see something that is off, we very generally don't say, no, you can't do that. It's generally a matter of adjustments. So I think we generally adjust ideas so they can work in the setting rather than keep people from doing certain things. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, totally. I agree with that. Yeah. Um, and I just wanted to also point out, that we're not just with sheets, but you know, I'm going to use the word strict here because I think it works in regards to what I'm about to say. But we're being fair with character sheets. We're being um, we're being logical when it comes to character sheets, but we're being strict when it comes to lore, when it comes to the Anarch lore, when it comes to how many people should be and how many type of clan should be in the Anarchs. There shouldn't be more than one. There shouldn't be more than one Giovanni in an Anarch game. There shouldn't be more than one Seti in an Anarch game. There shouldn't be more than maybe four Zimitsi in an Anarch game. And that's where we're being strict. We're making sure that these things make sense. Vicissitude is a very nice discipline, um, but that isn't a reason why somebody should pick, a Zimitsu clan. It has to make sense. Um, so those type of clans like Giovanni, Seti, Ravnos, those really low pop clans, they have to have a really really good reason to play those characters in an Anarch game, because it just doesn't make any sense for them to be within the Anarch. So in that regard, we're being strict. We're also being restrict in regards to the New York history. We've been using a lot of the NPCs and going with that general story of how the Camarilla is kind of uh, it's princeless right now after uh, Calbaros abdicated the throne, and yeah, so we're being very strict in that regard. And it's really fun. It's really fun. I mean, if you've read New York by Night or Anarchs Unbound, you know that it's good to be strict in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, we can't. We're holding everyone to the same standard. And if there's quirks in this reboot, we will do what we've always done, and we will bring everyone together. And by everyone, I mean the storytellers and the staff, and we'll say, look, we got to fix this, and we fix it. We've never claimed to be perfect. I don't think we are perfect. I like to think that this is close. But again, narcissism. But if we we just want to bring people New York by Night, and I don't think we've talked about it here yet. I know we talked about it outside of being recorded, but Virgil lives in New York. Specifically, he lives on. Would you care if I say that you live on Staten Island? Because I already did.
That's fine.
Um, yeah, could you say? Well, I used to live there. I've since moved. I'm not telling you where I am now, but but we both know the area. Because if you read Anarchs Unbound, if you read New York by Night, I don't know if New York by Night does it, but Anarch Unbound does. Um, Staten Island is the Anarch sort of. It's the major seat of power of Anarchs in the Northeast, definitely. Um, so we're playing there, and we're playing in an area we know. We played in the area that we grew up in. We're playing in an area that we drive around, that we know of. So it's not just Manhattan, which is Camarilla, where I mean, you guys know Manhattan either from being there or popular culture and movies or like Marvel comics, which always everything takes place in Manhattan. But you're
Let me
actually
just
dealing with.
interject right there real quick. We put up a poll stating what city, because we wanted to have an anarch. We wanted to have an anarch city, and I set up a poll asking our members what they would rather. I think I put Boston. I put somewhere in Canada. What was that? Sasquatch Land or whatever the hell we called it. That middle province, basically. That place I had. Um, the Free States, of course. I forgot what else, but a good amount of areas. And surprisingly, I didn't vote. Surprisingly, we got New York and we got Staten Island, and I know probably more than anybody in the guild about Staten Island. And guys, or Gummy and guys probably have equal knowledge of Staten Island. So it worked out to the benefit. And I didn't even vote, which was really funny. Um, and I was just really surprised that we got
I
Staten
did
Island. You voted
because I am blatantly corrupt.
it.
But I
But again,
mean,
it was it wasn't like it was like it was over one, it was one post. I mean, it was one vote over. The majority was for Staten Island, or for New York.
yeah. And what I was saying was, I mean, again, another example. I mean, you and I have talked about this GTA 4. The one place that's omitted from GTA 4. I mean, it's all parody and it's all caricatured and fictionalized. But the one area that's omitted from GTA 4 is Staten Island. So
Mm.
really, nobody really knows about it. So you can't really play an Anarch game without people who know it. And that's going to sound elitist. I think that you got to know the setting. But Staten Island's really a unique place. I mean, you know this, and I know this. There's through the trains and through certain street. I shouldn't call them streets.
Well, I would hope the
Highways.
STs know the setting. I mean, even just like researching it, would be enough.
Oh
But
yeah, I know.
we know all the little nooks and crannies of it, which could really work for good stories.
But I mean, you know this, and I know this, and you could drive bridge from bridge right through the borough and not see any of it because there's entire chunks of the island
Hmm.
don't touch anything. So I think it's important. Like if you wanna tell a story about this place or that place that isn't directly connected to Manhattan or Brooklyn or there's or New Jersey, it's it's important to know your setting. I mean, everyone should know the setting, but the fact that we can tell you what road you're on. I mean, I have a story going on now that takes place. They're meeting inside a 99-cent store. I know where that 99-cent store is. I mean, we're trying to give. It's much more in depth than it was before. I think before, and this isn't a bad thing, but before when it was international, it's like, well, I'm sending someone to Austria. What should I do? I'm going to look up on Google Images pictures of Austrian mansions. Now I can actually go into Google Earth and say, you're on this street in this place. You're meeting. So I think that as much as things have changed, I think it's more professional. I think we know more about what we're doing, and we can give people a better product and a better use of their time.
Definitely, definitely. What else do we have to talk about regarding the the reboot?
Well, I think we pretty much pitched that as best as we can, short of just going through all the rules. I'd say if people want to know more, they can contact us in one way or another or comments on YouTube. If there's enough comments here, we'll address it in another podcast, or we'll produce a podcast entirely about the fun the fun 3 hours that we spent constructing a lot of this stuff. But I don't think we should just. I think we dragged on enough about this for now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only other thing that, you guys can, if you have any other questions, we rebooted a lot. I did a lot of our wiki work, changed things around. We have, we're using the traditional V20 system regarding character sheets, stuff like that. Not many differences except for our abilities, but it all works out in the end. But yeah, so if you have any other, if you have any questions regarding the system, how Saligia is working, just comment below, and or you can, I'll put the email address for Saligia up on the in the description there below, and you guys can send me any questions you got.
All right. Now to close out this podcast, we have a few minor. I don't know how to describe it. Content notes. This would have been longer if she was here, but I'm just going to run over a bit of the stuff.
She
If
being SHII, not SHE.
yes, our Sabat storyteller and the person that runs the Lippy Lilith radio show, which is, if you've been looking at the channel, I don't know if you have been. It's been a very long time since we've done a lot of things, but we recently ported over the first of quite a few of her radio shows, which are on. Are they on SoundCloud? Is that what they were originally put
Yep.
up? Yeah. We're starting to put those over to increase content on the YouTube page. And I would have liked to have talked about that with her here, but scheduling issues and whatnot. I will hopefully, if I could talk to her, maybe sit down with her on Gaius' Grimoire and discuss this. Speaking of which, Gaius' Grimoire is also being altered. I am still going to do it because I enjoy doing it. I am still going to tell and tell my thoughts about things relating to this hobby and tell the stories that I have, for good or for ill, regarding the hobby and my experiences. Primarily, I will be altering the format, and by that I mean it will predominantly be a guest spot. In the past, every once in a while on this show, for a couple of episodes, we did have guests. I don't know how frequent that's going to be now, because we want to make this a monthly thing rather than a one video and then silence for months. So I'm not sure if we can arrange many guests to come in as much as we used to or wanted to. So I'm going to bring on the chance of accommodating our members and our staff and whoever want to be part of it on Gaius' Grimoire to have more of a, I don't want to use the word intimate, but a more personal conversation on a topic between two individuals. So I hope I can get she on that. I've had a few members that I wanted to put in for one reason or another. Virgil, I guess I could do one with you if you wanted to. I'm sure you have stories from certain exploits that I weren't a part of, that I wasn't
Yeah.
a part of. I weren't. It's not grammatically correct. I wasn't a part of. But yeah, so that's really. I don't know when I'm going to have the first one up. I think I have an older episode in the back burner with you. I think you have one. What is it? My top 6 or top 7 franchises that want to be made into RPGs.
I believe so. Hold on.
Okay, you don't have to check for it now. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I had one other that was
Probably
in
not.
mine. I had one other, but then my computer hard drive exploded, so I lost the video of whatever that was on. Not important because I don't remember it. But those are really our content notes. Virgil will tell you I've always been pro content. I don't think Virgil is pro content because he has to edit most of it. She does her own editing. I don't edit anything. So, but I do want to get the people who are interested in what we do. I want to give them some kind of stream of content. Gaius Grimoire was designed initially to fill the gaps between SaligiaCast, and even that, the last one that was put up 3 months ago, although that's not particularly my fault. But I do want to keep my word in that regard, and I know that she is re-energized. HIII, again, is re-energized in terms of making her content, her radio shows, We've had many members contribute to that in one way or another. We've had people that aren't related to us that she has contacted contribute to that in one way or another, whether it be commercials or sound files or this or that. So we are committed to giving you a better community to RPN. We are giving you as much content as we can, and we hope that it all turns out for the best. And I'll ask see if she can come and meet with me in terms of her show and see if we can get a guy as Gilmore to fill out the details regarding her radio show.
And we didn't mention Eve either, but she's still part of the group here, and hopefully she'll be here for the next SaligiaCast. But also scheduling issues and all that.
You say that like I'm maliciously leave Eve out of things.
Well, no, we had to get this in. We had to we had to do it as quick as possible. So yeah.
Yeah, but we're all, yeah, we'll hopefully have another one of these in a month. If a major thing happens, who knows? We'll probably produce one sooner. But we hope to keep true to the promises. This will be a monthly production.
All right. Well, we went through a lot of stuff. Spoke about the MMO being canceled. I mean, in and of itself, that could have been its own episode, but we put that off due to I think a lot of people were just sad at the time. Nobody really wanted to do anything.
Don't
But we
make
had scheduled
excuses
it.
for our laziness.
Well, I mean, no, we did it. We did have. We scheduled it, or I scheduled it. Just never, it never went through. But yeah. But anyway, yeah. So we did that. We went through, the death of Saligia, that going out the window. Then we have, the whole reboot to the Saligia New York by Night Chronicle. Then we just talked about, and late nights with Lily Lilith and Guys is a Grimoire, which hopefully will all be up to date sooner or later. We don't really have a firm schedule on when things are updated, as you probably can already tell. We kind of just go with the flow type of thing. But yeah, that's it. So I wanted to thank everybody for watching. If you have any questions, please send me a comment, or you can email me. I'll put my email address at the bottom, or the Saligia email address at the bottom. And yeah, thank you for watching.
Bye bye.